Good evening and welcome to another edition of Special Assignment. I'm your host Ashraf Garda. Tonight we start off with a warning to sensitive viewers that we will be screening disturbing footage of animal cruelty that may upset some of our audience members. In this episode we expose the dark, cruel and brutal blood sport of organised dog fighting. It's not only rife across the country, but also highly organised and lucrative on the higher tiers of these syndicates. These dogfighting rings also stretch beyond our borders into the murky underworld of global organised crime syndicates. This report by Adele van die Kerk.
Special Assignment is in possession of this disturbing recording. It's an organised dog fight, styled in the form of a music video, glorifying a heinous, shocking blood sport practiced underground across South Africa. It's a multi-million rand industry involving spectators from all walks of life who place large bets on the head of one of the fighting dogs. The ultimate aim: to mutilate, maim or kill the opponent's dog. The dog's handlers prize themselves as professional sportsmen and is known in this blood-stained underworld as DOGMEN.
These high-end fights are usually organised via secret channels, forums, internet forums, more recently through more modern mediums like BlackBerry Messenger.
This man has been tracking members of dog fighting rings for years. He agreed to speak to Special Assignment on condition that we don't reveal his identity. He says the organised dog fighting syndicates are difficult to infiltrate.
It is a very close-knit and very tight-lipped setup. You need to know somebody who knows somebody else who knows somebody else. It takes time to build their trust and to get in.
Dog fighters move underground because the practice is illegal. They communicate on closed-off online forums through very specific language in the form of codes.
The owners can mention in the pedigree of the dog, they can mention the titles or that the dog have achieved. These are often stated in very obscure kind of prefixes like 1 times W, which is the dog won a fight. Then you would have numbers going up to a champion dog which have won, I think it's at least 3 fights and not lost more than 2. You get a grand champion which have won 5 fights and not lost more than a certain number and not against a certain category of dog.
The more dogs the dog have killed and sort of basically eaten alive, the higher the bets are, because that dog has got like a status that is linked to it.
Mariette Hopley heads the Animal Welfare Task Team and together with the National Police Service and Interpol has been investigating international links between dog fighters in South Africa and global dog fighting syndicates around the world.
You have your specialized fight where there's a specific dog that's been actually raised to actually participate in the dog fight, like a specific pit bull. You know, this dog, he is or she is groomed just specifically for that specific purpose. Then you would find that the bets are lifted, and then you get to the point where you actually find a bet of $1 million up to 1.5 million.
On 14 May 2011, 10 men were apprehended inside a house in Plettenberg Bay in the Western Cape, where an organised dog fight was allegedly taking place. A sting operation was carried out by police and animal welfare officials.
There were 10 people that was arrested. They were tipped off by the Knysna Animal Welfare Society that something is happening, and they were able to then access the property and find that it was actually happening on the property where dogs were put together in a pit.
It displayed all the trademarks of an organised title fight held according to the Cajun rules and organised in the fashion as specified by the Pitbull Breeders' Digest.
In this online forum, 2 of the suspects arrested in the Plettenberg Bay sting discussed the Cajun rules, a set of guidelines on how to conduct these dog fights.
They are done according to rules that have been imported from the United States as far back as 1955, called the Cajun rules, which will stipulate how big the pit has to be, where the scratch line has to be, that the dogs have to be washed down beforehand to make sure that there's no acid or anything on it. There has to be a referee present that is accredited by the Pit Bull Breeders Digest. The dogs have to be weighed in.
In this disturbing footage of a dog fight that we received, it's clear that one of the dogs has been severely injured. But the referee asks that the dogs continue for one more possible scratch or attack, and if the weaker dog turns away, a winner can be declared.
Chances are infection will set in and the dog will die. Slow and agonizing death if they don't die from the fight and the shock of the fight itself.
But despite their public boasting online of their dogs' rankings and victories, Inspector Andries Venter says it's difficult to track these syndicates in cyberspace.
No, we don't have the facility or the legal mandate to be able to do that. We did get informed of such activities and we handed it over to the police to be investigated through their technical people.
The alleged members of the syndicate in the Plettenberg Bay case have appeared in court several times.
These people involved here are quite high profile and professional people. You've got a contractor from Vanderbijl Park who owns dozens of pit bull terriers. You've got a chef from Plettenberg Bay. You have somebody who was employed as a specialist extension officer by the Department for Agriculture. Then you've got an engineer working at a consulting engineering firm. They are educated people, graduates. It's a completely different level of dogfighting.
Next up, a look at gangsterism and its ties with dogfighting rings on the Cape Flats.
Tafelsig in the Cape is considered by some, even its residents, as the most dangerous area on the Cape Flats. Violent gangs and drug abuse are intimately woven into the fabric of society here. No surprise then that the macho subculture of dogfighting has taken root here and has become a big problem in recent years. A group of young men agree that we can accompany them to one of the local dog pits where fights are organized. It's at a remote spot inside a conservation area adjacent to Tafelsig. The more organized fights, or rolls as they are called, usually happen over a weekend. But it's Tuesday today and the group has a school roll planned. It's a term that describes the training of younger dogs and their handlers. At first, the dogs are worked up by their handlers to get them into an aggressive mode or to get them game. Then 2 dogs are pitted against each other for an attack or a scratch, as it's known.
Wat ons maak, ons skrits hulle. Ons maak hulle aggressief. Dan skrits ons hulle. Nou sal hulle mekaar gryp, dan los ons hulle, kyk wat hulle kan maak. Nou los dat hulle so tyd se beklei, dan breek ons hulle. Dan pos ons miskien hulle tweede skrits.
Another pair is pitted against each other for a scratch. A jaw lock soon sinks in. It can last for up to an hour, so the handler has to force the dog's jaw open with a blunt, hard object, or break it, as it's often referred to. It's shocking to watch, but it seems like an all too familiar ritual for these young men.
Ons is te skris, it's almost like a as amper so lus maak wat ons nou gedoen het. As dit vir julle om te wys wat is pitbull capable van doen. Die mense elke dag. Hulle laat die honde baklei vir geld en ons doen dit om te survive.
Several young teenage boys have also pitched up for today's role. In a society rife with social ills, they desperately want to belong to this culture.
Voel sorry vir hulle. Hy laat ek voel, because ek hou nie van my honde so sien bloei nie. Altyd daar wil op weer my honde, 'n fight. Maar nou, is net die tyd.
En as jy die ander honde sien bloei, hoe voel jy?
Voel ek seer, because as hulle is amper soos mens, hulle kry ook seer van binne. As net om die van press.
Dogfighting on the Cape Flats and townships across South Africa are considered less organised than the higher tier of syndicates operating nationwide, but it's still a money spinner for those involved.
You have your basic bets that's placed, like, if the guys are sort of in Grassy Park, Mitchell's Plain, the Kaapse Vlakte, there the guys work, say, maybe about 1,000 Rand, 2,000 Rand, maybe just 500 Rand, it all depends. Because you do have daily dogfights taking place in areas of concern. We know of that.
We return to Tafelsig the following morning. Ashley Stark sustained some injuries in the fight from the day before.
As alles oor is en die hond is, hoe kan ek sê, die hond mink of hy snye, hy wonde. En voel ze een beetje slecht, als je het jezelf, ik ga het nooit weer doen. En dan komt het niet weer als anders is addictief toe het. Als ik nu zie, dan denk ik is bang om mijn hond te laten pakken.
Dogfighters will almost never take the dogs to the SPCA for treatment, avoiding unnecessary questions about the dog's injuries. But Ashley says they source medicine from local SPCA officials that sell this to dogfighters under the table.
Hulle gaan nie vir enige ene dit gee om te koop daar. Is eie vriend van hom en eie daar week en vir hom eie kry en dan betaal hy die persoon.
We have in the past investigated those and staff members have been found guilty and dismissed from SPCAs. But if we don't know about it, there's nothing we can do about it. People need to report it to us.
Go for the next dog,
Okay.
That's why we rather keep on...
So you're saying that the purpose of the heavy shackles then is?
Safety first.
Safety first.
Because it's difficult to catch dogmen or dog fighters in the act, the SPCA often set their sight on their possible suppliers, dog breeders. Alan Perrins heads the Cape Town SPCA branch. Today carries out spot checks with Inspector Moyo Ndukwana at a local breeder in Skarpkraal.
In South Africa, it's considered animal mutilation, so you're actually not allowed to crop a dog's ears. And this clearly, Warren, I'm sure you'll agree, looks like a homemade dog.
No, definitely.
I mean, this is unacceptable.
Warren York was arrested about 8 years ago for dog fighting. He's at first apprehensive to talk to us, but invites us to return the following morning without the SPCA.
This one belongs to a friend. You can't go around telling people, hey, I just fought my dog and won with it. You know what I mean? That type of thing. It's basically, it's a lonely sport. It's something you're doing basically for yourself. You're going to fight your dog, you're going to win, and who are you going to tell? Take one out, grab one.
The pit bull dog was brought to South Africa from America. In the 1900s, the original dogmen tested the dog's strength through dog fights to determine the strongest bloodline.
Real dogmen way back in America many years ago, the reason for fighting dogs basically was you fight dogs to breed good dogs. You're not breeding dogs for fighting.
But the breeding sector remains lucrative, and with hardly any legislation guiding it, it's difficult to determine who these dogs are ultimately bred for, or in whose hands the dogs could land up.
Breeders need to become more cautious when they actually sell the animals to people. Find out where the dog's going to, what the dog's going to do, and not just sell a whole lot of puppies to somebody.
Animal trade is huge in South Africa. It is, and there's no limitation to breeding of animals by law, unfortunately. We have discussed this informally with some individuals in government, where we would like to see that breeding restrictions are put in place.
Here, members of the Animal Welfare Task Team intercept dogs at the Cape Town airport, destined for Angola. Local breeders have been trafficking dogs into neighbouring countries, mostly for global dogfighting rings.
There's dog fights taking place in Angola where you have and other parts of Africa specifically, where you have people from various parts of the world flying in. They place their bets and they fly in as spectators to actually participate in these dog fights. And there we talk about millions of dollars, not just rands.
The cruelty of dog fighters has no limits. We reveal more in a moment.
100.
Estelle Smith has been a dog conditioner for more than 2 decades. In recent years, she has been rehabilitating rescued pit bull dogs who have been used as dog fighters.
I don't take chances, but I know how to get close to them and then win them over after a while, and then I start working with them.
Estelle says DOGMEN don't like losing, and a losing dog who survives a fight is seen as bringing shame over the handler and must be punished.
Like the one I showed you, he put a cement block on with a chain on their neck and they throw them in the river to drown. Others will tie them up in a tree and leave them to die. We went out in a case where they found us and there was a dog fight on a mine hip, and then the female was thrown on the train track. She was still alive when we got there.
Scores of pit bull breeders also keep the dogs under horrific conditions. Some keep dozens at a time. Estelle says they're kept chained up for their entire lives with heavy industrial chains that leave deep scars around the neck.
I chain them with this heavy chains because it exercises the dogs also to get a strong neck for fighting.
One of the suspects that were arrested in the Big Plettenberg Bay bust, Fani Uber, was also a pit bull breeder. The arrest led law enforcers to 3 properties where Uber kept dogs under deplorable conditions, either for breeding or possibly fighting purposes. These pictures are aerial shots of the Van der Bijl Park small holding, where it's believed that he kept up to 50 dogs at what some investigators term dog breeding farms.
Really despicable circumstances under which most of these dogs are kept. The chain itself, if you've got a chain weighing about 5 kilograms around your neck all the time, it's going to build muscle, and if it's going to dig into your neck, your muscles are going to alter and compensate for it and become harder, and the neck will become tougher.
A court found Uber guilty of animal cruelty. At the time, he was the technical inspector of the Pit Bull Union of South Africa. There are 2 main organizations representing pit bull owners in South Africa. The one is the Union, and the other is the Pit Bull Federation of South Africa. These organizations arrange dog shows where the strength and brute force of a pit bull dog is tested. These dog shows and their members have been accused of being a front for dog fighting syndicates.
We've heard the same rumors. We have engaged with the organizations that run those shows. They have all claimed that they do not entertain such activities. They do not allow people that are involved to be at their shows.
We confront the chairman of the Pit Bull Union about these allegations.
Ek kan nie vir jou sê dat hulle beklein nie, maar daar is mense wat ondergronds beweeg. En as jy maar net weer hoor, het hulle geveg gehad of gereël, maar jy hoor dit 'n paar maande daarna eers.
Uber and his wife Rina refused to answer any of our questions. Rina Uber is still an active member of the union and listed as its treasurer.
Ek verstaan ook dat sy vrou Rina Uber is nog baie nou by die Unie betrokke.
Ja, sy was tot laas jaar op die komitee nog gewees.
Hoe regverdig julle dat iemand soos Rina dan nog steeds deel van die Unie is?
Ja, jy sien sy was nie direk betrokke by die storie gewees nie. Ek meen, sy was 'n man gewees. Ek meen, ons kan haar nie wegwys nie.
Basically what they do is just the front is, yes, we show with our dogs, but some of those guys have 75 dogs on their properties. They never come to shows.
Jeanette Erasmus is the president of the Pit Bull Federation of South Africa. She too denies that her organization is a front for dog fighting.
I can promise you all those members that belong to the federation is proud, responsible, and there's no cruelty, and they don't fight their dogs. Not at all, they're not interested. It's a show dog and it's a pet at their house.
I've often seen a lot of the members of both of those organisations, but more so the Pit Bull Union of South Africa, boasting about their dogs' prowess and about their dogs' achievements, and it casts a rather dim view on these organisations. Why do you allow members that go around boasting about your dog's fight titles?
Organisers of these dog shows admit that the events replicate the strengths and abilities needed for fighting characteristics.
Basically, the shows is something that replicates a dog fight. Instead of fighting your dog, you bring the dog to the show. And at the show, you've got the weight pulling, which is, you can see that what weight your dog pulls, so that's strength training, you know. And then you got the hanging, which shows you how long your dog would actually hang with the power of the jaws, you know, that type of thing.
But practices at these shows have also come under criticism. Dogs are expected to pull up to 9,000 kilogram loads in weight training categories. And in the so-called long hang category, dogs lock their jaws onto a conveyor belt and can hang like this for up to 2 hours.
The Animals Protection Act is quite clear that if you attach an animal and unnecessarily override it or subject it to a load that could cause potential injury or potential disease, you are breaking the law.
There are injuries in any sport. People break legs in rugby, cricket, soccer, all funny games, you get hurt. So it's, at the end of the day, it's a sport. So it comes with the territory.
Ek skou 14 jaar nou, Paul, aan mekaar. Nou, nog nooit 'n hond seer gekry, ek van weet nie, so ek kan nie kommentaar daarop lewer nie.
Gameness is the willingness to please his owner. So the pit bull will do anything for you as an owner. So in other words, if you train him the correct way and you give him enough love, he will pull that trolley.
But it's this same gameness that dogmen rely on when sending their dogs into the pit to fight.
Like I said, gameness is the willingness to please his owner. If he's in a ring and he fights, he will fight till he dies. But his owner is next to him. So in other words, encouraging this dog, if his leg is broke, he will still continue.
And the training of the dogs is where the lines blur even further because of the overlap. Show dogs and fighter dogs will receive exactly the same type of training to get them fit for competition.
In the United States, there's a Utah code that says that if you are found in possession of a dog that is classified as a dog that could be used in fighting, and you are found with any of these items, it will serve as prima facie evidence that you are indeed fighting dogs.
Now, I'm sure you have strong views on this controversial issue, and you can share those views via Twitter, Facebook, or email. You can also join me on my radio show when I take this issue further. That's at 2:30 p.m. on SAFM on Friday. Well, that's it for tonight. Join us again next week when we point out the issues that matter.